In the quiet mining town of Mill Haven, Pennsylvania, time has a way of protecting what we're not ready to face. For most of the world, Mill Haven is a name that means nothing, a speck of soot between two mountain ridges. A town that once thrived on coal and steel and now survives on memory and habit. One church, one school, 2 bars, and a cemetery larger than the town itself. If you visit today, it looks like a place time forgot. But Mill Haven remembers. It remembers in silence, in shadows, in boarded-up buildings and the creak of rusted fences. It remembers the night the Silver Line Express vanished. Welcome to Family Crime Chronicles, your ultimate destination for chilling true crime stories. We uncover the darkest corners of real-life mysteries, twisted affairs. Make sure to watch this video to the very end, and if this story moves you, give the video a like. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, so you will never miss an upload. Now, let's dive into the story. The year was 2002. Flip phones were state-of-the-art. CDs skipped if you ran too hard with a Walkman. Gas was $1.20 a gallon. And Zaria Holt, 19 years old, gifted, fearless, was on the brink of everything she'd ever dreamed of. She and her bandmates, Clara and Jules, had a chance most only wished for. A mystery recording session. A secret studio tucked away somewhere near the Appalachians. A man named Mallory Klein had reached out with an offer. Money, exposure, a place to record uninterrupted. No managers, no deadlines, just pure creativity. The band, Velvet Indigo, they never made it. She had a voice like thunder soaked in honey. When Zaria sang, it was like the world leaned in to listen. Small town stages couldn't contain her, and neither could the narrow lanes of Mill Haven. She wrote her first song at 12. By 14, she was playing local festivals. By 18, she'd made a name online, just enough to draw the eyes of someone like Klein. But Zaria wasn't just talented. She was alive in every sense of the word. Curious, sharp, with a mischievous grin that made you feel like you were on a joke, even if you didn't know the punchline. And she loved her bandmates like sisters. Clara Min and Jules Freeman, known on stage as Clarity, completed the trio. They weren't just a band. They were a family of outsiders who built their sound in basements and garage studios, writing songs about loneliness, resistance, and dreams that felt too big for the town they grew up in. Zaria lived with her father, Henry Holt, a retired music teacher with a quiet soul and callous fingers from years of piano playing. After his wife died when Zaria was only 6, he poured everything he had into raising her, and she, in turn, lit up every corner of their small home. That night, the night she vanished, he remembered watching her pace the living room in nervous excitement, her guitar strapped across her back. Almost there. It's beautiful out here. Feels like magic. That was the last text Henry ever got. Zaria, Clara, and Jules boarded the train from Harrisburg, bound west through the Appalachian foothills. It was a late-night ride, the 3:10 Silver Line Express, a line known more for freight than passengers. Few even knew it still operated. They shared a private car, rented by Klein himself. Security footage showed them boarding, chatting, laughing. Jules played chords on a mini keyboard. Clara filmed clips on her handheld camcorder. Zaria wore her trademark velvet scarf, deep indigo blue. The mood was electric, like a storm was coming, and they were ready to dance in it. But sometime between the 3:10 departure and its expected 6:50 a.m. arrival in Crescent Summit, the train vanished. No wreckage, no reports of stops or delays, no radio transmissions, just silence. By midday, The station reported the missed arrival. At first, it was dismissed as an error, maybe a scheduling mix-up or a signal issue. But by nightfall, with no word from the engineer, no trace on any satellite or rail logs, concern turned to alarm. Henry reported Zaria missing by 7 p.m. The next day, the story made local news. TV anchor, archival audio. 3 young musicians from Millhaven have disappeared while en route to a private studio session in the Appalachian region. Search teams were deployed. Helicopters combed the foothills. Canines traced scents to a now-defunct tunnel system just outside Millhaven, but nothing concrete was ever found. The mountains were old, endless, unforgiving. The official explanation? A tragic accident, maybe a derailment. Maybe the train had gone off a bridge, down a ravine, but no evidence was ever found. No bodies, no train, and no one in Millhaven ever forgot. After the first year, people stopped asking how Henry was doing. He stopped teaching. He sold his instruments. The house went quiet, the room stale with silence. He walked the edges of town at night, holding a flashlight and a weathered photo of Zaria, just in case. Just in case someone saw something, anything. He visited train yards, haunted tunnels, called into conspiracy radio shows. Some folks pitied him. Others whispered about obsession, grief gone too far. But Henry didn't care. In the absence of answers, all he had was a search. He kept a journal. Every theory, every lead, every unconfirmed sighting. It filled 4 volumes over 20 years. The truth he wrote once wasn't buried. It was hidden, deliberately. In the years after, the story of Velvet Indigo became a local myth. Some kids claimed they heard music coming from deep in the woods. Others said the girls had joined a cult or been taken by the government. Theories ranged from alien abduction to time loops to military cover-ups. But the town never really moved on. Not when every rusted track in the foothills seemed to whisper with the sound of a train that was never found. 1 week before they vanished, the band filmed a short video, part promo, part journal. In it, they sit on a hill outside Millhaven. The sun's going down behind them. Zaria plays a soft chord progression. Clara reads from a notebook. Jules laughs off camera. Zaria turns to the lens. If something ever happens to us, she says, smiling, just know this. We were chasing something real. Magic, maybe. Something worth believing in. The footage was never released. Until 21 years later, when everything changed. They called themselves the Hollow Three, an online crew known for diving headfirst into abandoned places most people wouldn't dare to enter. Derelict hospitals, flooded subway systems, missile silos left behind after the Cold War. If it was dangerous, dark, and off-limits, they'd go in with cameras rolling. Their videos were gritty, raw, not polished like the travel influencers, or over-dramatized like Ghost Hunters. They prided themselves on authenticity, mapping out decayed structures, tracing lost histories, and sometimes uncovering things that should have stayed hidden. In late spring of 2023, the Hollow Three chose Millhaven. To outsiders, it was just another forgotten town on the verge of disappearing. But to deep-diving internet sleuths and dark web wanderers, Millhaven had a reputation, one that included whispered government experiments, ghost trains, and the unsolved mystery of Velvet Indigo. The group, Des, the leader and drone operator, Lyra, the researcher and camera tech, and Kev, the muscle and climber, followed rumors to an old coal shaft known as Grange Tunnel 9. The mine had been shut down in 1986 after a cave-in killed 6 men. It wasn't listed on most maps anymore. The entrance was buried under debris and vines. But Dez had found something. On an old blueprint, a line, a tunnel never marked for mining. It branched out deep into the rock, deeper than it should have. Day one was a bust. Loose rock, collapsed beams. Every step was a risk. Day two, they got past the first blockade. Day three, they found it. The tunnel widened. The walls changed. No longer the black coal limestone of a traditional shaft. These were concrete, reinforced, industrial. Lyra's voice on the footage is shaky but clear. This doesn't belong here. Someone built this long after the mine closed. And then the sound of metal, a door, and behind it, a train car. Rust covered everything. The air was thick with mold and dust. But the car itself was unmistakable. The number etched into its side matched the Silver Line Express listed in the 2002 transit logs. Inside, their cameras revealed something surreal. A guitar case, cracked open, a faded sticker of a blue velvet butterfly on its lid, a compact cassette recorder with battery acid crusted around its joints, a velvet scarf draped across the seat, deep indigo. Kev lifted it gently. The initials embroidered at the hem, VI. Then Lyra gasped. A torn, water-damaged backpack. Inside, expired IDs, sheet music stained with mildew, and a small leather-bound journal. The name written inside, Zaria Holt. They froze. This wasn't just an urban legend. It was real. Dez uploaded a 40-second teaser clip to a secure server on the dark web that night. By morning, it had spread to Reddit, TikTok, encrypted forums, and Discord servers. Conspiracy theorists exploded. Velvet Indigo found. Train under mountain. DARPA testing site. Ghost girls of Millhaven. But within 24 hours, the video vanished from public feeds. Wiped, replaced with takedown notices. That's when the FBI stepped in. Troop wasn't new to black box cases. She had made a name for herself working counterintelligence in Alaska, then vanishing for nearly a decade into classified work no one talked about. When she reemerged, she wore the quiet armor of someone who'd seen things she couldn't explain. She was the one who made the call. Recording office line. Dana Troop, Mr. Holt? Henry, who is this? Dana, Special Agent Dana Troop. I work with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Henry, you're 20 years too late. Dana, no, sir. We believe we found your daughter's last known location. We need you in Millhaven. Henry, pause. I stopped hoping long ago. Dana, then maybe it's time to start again. Henry returned to the town he had never truly left. He found it changed, yet the same. Main Street was quieter. The coffee shop was gone. So was the school where he once taught. But the mountains hadn't changed. They loomed, patient and unmoved, like they had been waiting for him to come back. Outside the Grange Tunnel entrance, he found a chaos of flashing lights, tents, forensic teams, and security agents. They'd sealed the area. The mine was now a federal crime scene. Media vans lurked just outside the perimeter, but no one could get in. Agent Troop met Henry at the edge of the shaft. She was tall, poised, with ice-gray eyes and a badge she didn't bother to flash twice. I need to show you something, she said, but you need to prepare yourself. Walking into the buried car was like walking into a coffin that had been sealed in memory. The air was thick, quiet, suffocating. Henry didn't speak for a full minute as he stared at the scarf, at the guitar case, at the initials he'd embroidered onto Zaria's backpack when she left for school. His hands shook. She was here, he whispered. She was right here. Dana nodded slowly. And she may have been here for longer than we thought. behind the train car, buried beneath layers of soot and gravel. The forensics team had discovered a sealed vault built into the tunnel wall. The door had no keyhole. It required a biometric signature to open. Inside, they found tapes. Surveillance footage, grainy, warped, but unmistakable. The girls, alive, days after the train vanished. Zaria, Clara, Jules, in a cold, gray chamber, dressed in hospital gowns, speaking to someone off camera. They were disoriented, agitated. "We shouldn't be here," Clara whispered. "I hear it again," Jules said, the voice in the wall, singing back at me. Zaria held their hands, trying to keep them grounded. Then a man appeared in one frame, slick back hair, expensive suit, smiling. Mallory Klein. Klein was a known name in underground music circles in the early 2000s. A fixer, they called him. He could get you gigs, exposure, access, but no one really knew who he worked for. He disappeared the same year Velvet Indigo vanished. Henry stared at the pause frame. "That's him," he said. "That's the man who signed them." Dana handed him a file. "There's more." Notes from inside the vault suggest the girls weren't brought here for music. They were brought for observation. Testing. Henry felt something crack in him. They were used. Dana didn't deny it, and what they found next confirmed everything. The tapes continued, documenting shifts in behavior. Zaria began forgetting things. Clara became increasingly paranoid. Jules wrote strange phrases over and over in a notebook, each in different handwriting. Scrawled on one page, "This place eats memory." Another, "When the music stops, we disappear." Equipment was recovered. Electroencephalographs, neurochemistry logs, tranquilizer injectors, brainwave charts. Dana pulled up a photo of a whiteboard recovered from a vault. At the top, it read, "Project Echo, Phase 2 DARPA Adjunct Study." At the bottom, subjects 003 AZH, 003 BCM, 003 CJF. Agent Trout now had enough to reclassify the case. This was no longer a missing persons report. It was a decades-old illegal military experiment, hidden beneath a decommissioned town, involving the manipulation of human memory, perception, and possibly consciousness itself. She turned to Henry. "I need your help," she said. "This goes deeper than we thought. We need to find out where they went after this." Henry nodded. For the first time in years, his voice was steady. "Then let's bring her home." Millhaven was no longer just a small town with a ghost story. It had become ground zero for one of the most bizarre cases in recent FBI memory. But what they had uncovered beneath Grange Tunnel 9 was only the beginning. As forensic analysts continued combing the subterranean vault, Agent Dana Trout and Henry Holt dug deeper into materials pulled from the hidden chamber. There were dozens of journals, some in Zaria's handwriting, others scribbled by Clara and Jules. Pages soaked in anxiety, fear, and fragments of things that didn't feel entirely real. "They talk to us when the lights go out. Music plays backwards here. He watches from a glass." It was as if they were caught between dimensions of sound and memory. But one thing was becoming disturbingly clear. They had not been alone. Dana watched the tapes over and over. Zaria, always the calm one, had become unsteady. Her singing voice, once steady and rich, had begun to waver in tone. Off-pitch, like she couldn't hear herself properly anymore. In one tape, she cried into the corner of a cold metal cell, whispering a song with no melody. In another, Clara pounded her fist on the wall, screaming. We're not your puppets. And Jules became silent. In one frame, she simply sat, eyes fixed ahead, mouth slightly open. A line of drool ran down her chin. She didn't move for hours. When an attendant, a man in black scrubs, entered the room to administer something via syringe, she didn't resist. And then another name surfaced. Patient 003CJ Clarity. DOD, 2004, expired during Phase 3. Dana whispered the words aloud. She died here. Henry sat silent beside her, his hands clenched. He didn't need to ask which girl it was. Jules Freeman, the drummer, always laughing, always spinning her sticks between her fingers. Gone. Signs of life. But one file, one line, changed everything. 003AZH status. Transferred/compliance/ongoing treatment. Dana stopped reading. Transferred. Alive? They traced the last documented activity of subject 003A to a transfer manifest. The name of the receiving facility was redacted, but a partial address code pointed north, toward the border of Pennsylvania and New York. Dana made the call. She assembled a secondary field team. And once again, Henry went with her. The Forgotten Institute. At the end of a winding dirt road deep in a forested section of the Appalachian Range sat the remains of Rowan Medical Institute. It had been shuttered since 2009. Officially, it had been a psychiatric facility for veterans. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. The windows were boarded up. The lawn had become a field of weeds. A rusted fence line wrapped around the perimeter like a skeletal warning. The team breached the main door. Inside, silence ruled. Rooms were torn apart. Files scattered. X-ray machines unplugged and abandoned mid-scan. Beds with restraint belts. Electroshock therapy machines tucked into corners like forgotten monsters. Then, down the eastern hallway, they found a steel door, welded shut. It took Kev, now working under government contract, 2 hours to cut through. Behind it was a sublevel. Dana's flashlight beam traced the faded lettering on the corridor wall. Sublevel 3B. Observation and stimulation. The rooms here were smaller, more sterile. There were thick panels of glass, some shattered, a projector screen yellowed with time. Wires ran along the ceiling like metal vines. Henry stood in front of a room labeled Suite 7. It had no window, just a sealed door and a biometric scanner. Dead now, without power. Dana turned to her tech. Get open. With a hiss and a groan, the door gave way. And inside, in a dimly lit chamber surrounded by medical machines and cables, lay a woman. Thin, pale, tubes in her arms, sensors on her scalp. Eyes closed, her hair long but dull. She hadn't aged, yet she bore the weathering of someone lost for decades. Henry stepped forward, but the doctor on site held him back. Give us a moment, Dana whispered. A heart monitor beeped steadily. Dana stared at the chart. Zaria Holt. Status: induced coma. Monitored: internal temp regulated. Brain activity: highly irregular. The technician whispered, She's dreaming. What do you mean? She'd been dreaming for years. They found volumes of logs, brain maps, audio samples, a system labeled neuroecho interface. It had been used to monitor and even influence Zaria's subconscious mind. Whatever this facility had been, Zaria had been at its center. She was the last subject, the last echo. Just as Dana stepped out into the hallway to begin securing the perimeter, a sudden noise echoed to the stairwell. Boots, fast and uneven. Then a man emerged, disheveled, armed, and shouting, "Stop! Don't touch her!" Guns were drawn. He stopped, chest heaving. It was him, Ricky Monroe, former Velvet Indigo keyboardist. He'd been presumed dead since 2003. "Lower your weapon," Dana ordered. Ricky dropped it. "I didn't know they kept her like this. I thought it was over. I came back to stop them." In the makeshift medical station, they sat him down. Henry stared at him like he was looking at a ghost. "You were with them," he said. "You let them take my daughter." Ricky's face collapsed in shame. "I didn't know what Mallory had planned. I thought we were going to record, test out some new sound tech. But they drugged us, separated the girls." He looked at Zaria. She was always the strongest. She agreed to cooperate, only because they threatened you. Henry looked away, tears silent and bitter. Ricky continued. "They were experimenting with neuroacoustic entrainment, trying to make music that could change cognition, create false memory, induce obedience. It started as a DARPA side project, but then Mallory went rogue. Sold it." Dana narrowed her eyes. "To who?" Ricky hesitated. "Edric Vass. He bought the data. And the girl, Edric Vass, a name that haunted the underground corridors of black market intelligence, known for trafficking in human experimentation, neurotech, and shadow networks. Vass had operated in the cracks between nations. He didn't serve governments. He served buyers, the kind who didn't need countries, just control. Zaria was supposed to be the prototype," Ricky said. "A memory-proof mind, one that could store, suppress, or project anything. They wanted to train agents using sound instead of torture." Dana stood. "That's it. We end this now." That night, Dana led her team to begin tracing Vass's operations, likely headquartered in a deep server enclave overseas. But Henry refused to leave the Institute. He sat beside Zaria, watched her breathe, held her hand. 21 years of silence, of grief, of hopelessness. And now here she was, alive, changed, but not gone. He sang to her, an old lullaby her mother used to hum. Voice cracked, barely a whisper. He didn't expect anything. But just before dawn, her fingers twitched, and in the faintest breath, almost too soft to hear, "Dad?" It was a doorway, one portal in a much larger and far darker labyrinth. Dana Trout knew they were on the trail of something sprawling, something deliberately hidden across jurisdictions, behind shell companies, forged identities, and erased digital footprints. And the name at the center of it all, Edric Vass. Not a ghost, a king in a silent empire. He didn't run a facility. He ran a network, a pipeline of minds and memories, siphoned through decades of covert neurological research. And somewhere in that tangled web, Zaria Holt had been just another product. The doctors had warned Henry Zaria's recovery, if possible, would be delicate. Her brain was a maze of false signals and overwritten synapses. But that whisper, that single word, "Dad," it meant there was still a thread, something real beneath the layers. Each day, she gained a little more awareness. She opened her eyes, flinched at bright lights, turned toward sound. But speech was difficult. Most language centers had been suppressed. When Henry played music, her heart rate stabilized. Classical, jazz, even a Velvet Indigo demo track, the one they recorded at home in her dad's garage. Her fingers twitched in time with the rhythm. Dana asked the neurologist, "Is she remembering?" "No," the doctor replied. "She's feeling." Ricky Monroe, now under protective custody, gave everything he knew. He explained how Mallory Klein had sold Velvet Indigo to Vass under a military research loophole, a DARPA neurointerface contract known as Project Shadow Song. It used sound, magnetic fields, and sensory deprivation to break down the brain's protective mechanisms and rewrite identity. Zaria had been the only one who'd reached Phase 4, a full synchronization with an artificial auditory construct. Her mind had been made receptive to embedded commands and false timelines. But when Shadow Song was abandoned, Mallory needed to cover his tracks. Clara and Jules had refused to comply. They were killed. Zaria was stored like an archive. Ricky had escaped only because of a freak elevator malfunction during a system lockdown. He fled, lived off the grid. But when he saw the footage of the abandoned train car surface on the dark web, he knew the truth had finally caught up. So he came back. Finding Edric Vass wasn't like tracking a fugitive. It was like chasing a shadow cast by a flickering flame. Dana traced the data transfer logs from the Rowan facility to an encrypted node cluster registered offshore, a server farm housed in a decommissioned submarine silo beneath the Hudson River. Only a few organizations had access. One of them, Noctis Group, a private intelligence and research syndicate allegedly hired by global tech and defense firms. Dana assembled a strike team. She wasn't just going after a man. She was going after the memory of an empire. The entrance to the silo was hidden beneath an old naval refueling station. Overgrown, silent, but guarded, heavily. The raid began at 2:03 a.m. Dana led point, flanked by special ops and cyberforensics agents. Inside, they found evidence of active data processing, holographic interfaces, deep learning machines, and a wall of servers blinking with encoded streams. A room labeled storage. Echo units held cryogenic pods, empty now, but with biometric logs showing dozens of past occupants. Neurostim arrays still active. In one office, a wall of photographs. Girls, young, all musically gifted, all missing. Zaria's photo was at the center. Down in the secondary level, chaos broke loose. Armed guards, not just muscle, but trained black market operatives, engaged the FBI team in a brutal shootout. It was fast, tactical. 2 agents fell. Ricky, who had insisted on joining the mission despite orders, grabbed a rifle from a downed guard and fought alongside Henry, who had insisted on being there for the end, for his daughter. In the heat of the firefight, Ricky spotted a familiar face. Mallory Klein, older, thinner, but unmistakable. Ricky ran after him, through the chaos, down a steel corridor, past locked vaults and shattered terminals. Cornered, Mallory raised his hands. "You don't have to do this." "You already did it," Ricky growled. But before he could pull the trigger, gunfire erupted behind them. A bullet struck Ricky in the side. He fell. Mallory vanished into a service hatch. Back at the hospital, Zaria began to change. As if something had been released, some invisible tether cut. Her brain scans went wild. The doctors watched in disbelief as new neural pathways lit up. It was as if a foreign signal had been severed, allowing her original personality to fight its way back. She began to speak, not fluently, not clearly, but enough. "Dad, you sang?" Tears flooded Henry's eyes. "Yes, I never stopped." Ricky survived the gunshot, barely, in the recovery unit. Dana sat beside him. "Why did you come back?" she asked. He looked at the ceiling. "Because they were more than a band. They were my family, and I let them down." Dana placed her hand on his. "You helped give them a voice again. With Edric Vass now officially a wanted man, and his network dismantled, the world began to learn the truth, at least the version they were allowed to see. News channels buzzed with words like illegal human experimentation, rogue neuroscientists, secret sound-based programming. But they never told the full story. They didn't mention Velvet Indigo, or the train, or the voices in the tunnels. Some secrets, Dana realized, were too deep for headlines. Weeks later, in a quiet rehab center by the Allegheny River, Zaria sat in a wheelchair beneath an old sycamore tree. Henry knelt beside her, playing chords on an acoustic guitar. She nodded with the rhythm. Then, slowly, she hummed. Off-key, but pure. Her voice, the first notes of a girl who had once vanished beneath a mountain, now returning. One breath, one chord, one truth at a time. For 21 years, Zaria Holt had been imprisoned by memory, not just her own, but by the synthetic echoes forced into her mind. Her rescue, her reawakening, had cracked open the shell. But one chain still remained. Edric Vass. He had vanished from the Noctis facility. The surveillance feed showed his escape route. One of the secret tunnels connected to a separate network beneath Millhaven's hills. The same place, Agent Dana Troop realized, where the Silver Line Express had been diverted 2 decades ago. The circle was closing, and Millhaven was still hiding something. Henry, against every protocol, insisted on returning to the site of the train's last signal. Dana objected at first, but then she agreed. He had earned the right. Besides, Zaria, though fragile, had identified something new in one of her whispered fragments. Red door, ringing metal hum. The phrase matched an encrypted map Ricky had uncovered. It marked a chamber deep beneath Millhaven Mine Shaft 9. Dana assembled a joint operation team. Henry would accompany her as a consultant. This time, it wasn't about a rescue. It was about ending it. For good, the team descended into the collapsed shaft, now partially excavated thanks to the earlier discovery of the Silver Line car. The tunnels below were colder than they remembered. Echoes ricocheted like phantom footsteps. At the bottom, behind rusted gates and the twisted remnants of mining rails, they found it. A red steel door embedded in bedrock. Unmarked, electrically sealed. Dana gave the signal. The breaching team stepped forward. The charge blew in silence, muffled by depth and dust. They entered. What they found was not a room. It was a chamber, part lab, part vault, part archive. Banks of outdated computer monitors buzzed to life. The air reeked of ozone and preservation fluid. Cylindrical tanks lined the walls, some broken, others still powered. At the center, a high-backed leather chair. Turn away from them, wired into a network of cables, tubes, and an ominous hum. Then a voice. Edric Vass. You finally found me. Vass turned slowly. His body was withered, age beyond his years. Tubes snaked into his arms. His pupils were dilated like someone who hadn't seen the sun in decades. He smiled. You think you're the first to try and stop what I built? You're just a new page in an old ledger. Dana raised her weapon. You're finished. Vass's hand hovered over a panel. I'm beyond finishing. Henry stepped forward, trembling. Why her? Why Zaria? Vass chuckled, a dry, hollow sound. She responded. That's it. You want justice. Holt, you raised a daughter who was compliant. That's all we ever needed. Henry's hand shook, but he didn't move. Dana spoke again. This facility is being shut down. You're going to stand trial. No, Vass whispered. I won't. With his final strength, he pressed a panel. An alarm sounded. Lights dimmed. Steam hissed from the floor. Dana screamed, "He's triggering a purge." Technicians scrambled to stop it, but it was too late. Files on the monitors scrambled. Drives overloaded. Vass slumped forward, lifeless. His final act, erased the proof. One of the forensics agents, hacking the system mid-shutdown, pulled something. A directory, hidden beneath 6 layers of encryption. Inside, audio files, brainwave patterns, a recorded conversation, Zaria's voice, and Jules, Clara, moments before they died. They were talking, crying, singing. The tapes didn't just prove the experiment. They captured the human cost. The real loss. Dana took the drive herself. This goes directly to the Bureau. Weeks passed. Ricky, now recovering with full immunity, attended the memorial service held in Millhaven for Clara and Jules. For the first time, their families had bodies to bury. Remains found preserved in sealed chambers within the facility. They were honored not as victims, but as warriors who resisted, who had paid the price so Zaria might survive. Henry stood at the podium, holding Zaria's hand. She wore a scarf, the same velvet one found in the train car. He read aloud the lyrics of the last Velvet Indigo song, one never released. A haunting acoustic guitar played behind him. Then, softly, with a voice cracked but clear, Zaria sang. The story broke globally. Whistleblower evidence, leaked tapes, declassified records. The full truth never reached the public, but enough did. Headlines read, "Mind Control Program Exposed. DARPA Denies Involvement. Underground Network Targeted Young Artists. Lost Train Mystery Solved After 21 Years. Mallory Klein was caught 6 months later in Morocco, extradited. Convicted on conspiracy and multiple charges of unlawful experimentation. Edric Vass was declared deceased, though conspiracy theorists still whisper of clones and neural backups. Velvet Indigo's music saw a resurgence, not because of its quality, but because of what it symbolized. Survival, truth, home again. 1 year later, Henry and Zaria moved into a house on the edge of Lake Wallenpaupack. Quiet, peaceful, she still struggled with memory. But the core of her, the spark, was returning. She wrote again, played piano. Sometimes she even laughed. Dana visited once. They stood on the porch, looking at the sun rise over the lake. "You were the key, Henry," she said. "She never gave up because she knew you wouldn't either." He nodded. "I just listened. That's all. Even when there was nothing but silence, I listened." Some stories begin with a scream, others with a song. But this one, this strange, tragic, beautiful tale, began with a silence that stretched across time, through tunnels, into minds and hearts and memories erased. And in the end, that silence was broken. Zaria Holt was found. Velvet Indigo's voice was restored. And Millhaven, once a quiet town hiding shadows, had faced its darkest truth and let the light in. There are stories that entertain, and there are stories that echo. Don't forget to, like this story if it kept you hooked. Comment your thoughts. Was it love, power, or something else? Subscribe and turn on notification for more real and emotional stories.